Alright, so this rant is gonna be about Pokemon. Yeah. Yeah, you know what? If you're gonna laugh at me, get out of here right now. Just turn off the audio, alright? This is for people who actually grew up in Pokemon, like me. Alright, all you geeks, listen to me. Now, it depends, I guess, on how old you are. If you're like me, who grew up in the late 90s and got to experience Pokemon, the original series, firsthand, and the original generation of video games, then you know exactly what I'll be talking about. If not, if you're younger than that, and if you just didn't experience that, and you like the Pokemon that is present today, you know, this generation's Pokemon, you probably won't be able to relate to what I'm gonna say. Alright, so some complaints that I have about this. What happened to Pokemon? You know, it was such a great RPG, you know, for the Game Boy, one of the best games. It was a must-have title for the Game Boy. It was a killer app for sure. It sold so many copies. The game itself was brilliant, you know. It had a really ingenious way of this gimmick where you get to trade Pokemon monsters because they had put out two different versions. Originally in Japan back in '95, it was red and green. But in this, in North America, they put out red and blue. But it was basically the same games. The only difference was that the different kind of Pokemon that you could capture. So, like in Pokemon Red, you can capture certain Pokemon that you won't be able to find in Blue, and vice versa. Alright, so it was a great game. You know, I spent so many hours on that. I got Pokemon Blue, by the way, and never had Red, unfortunately, but I sank so many hours in that. I played that all day at school. You know, every kid had a Game Boy and we were playing it and everything. You know, the cards were huge. You know, don't get me started on the cards. But I'm talking about the games, actually, because the games were actually really good. You know, despite the TV show, despite all the cards, the game was really good, and I want to talk about that. You know, what happened to the Pokemon games? I noticed that throughout the years, it stayed mostly as a handheld game. The thing with Pokemon is they never made any Pokemon games for the Big Brother consoles. The GameCube never had a real Pokemon game. The Wii doesn't have a Pokemon game. The Nintendo 64 never had a real Pokemon game. I mean, yeah, they had, like, you know, Pokemon Snap and that, what was that? It was like a battle thing where you could insert your Game Boy cartridge into the N64 and you could play the Game Boy game and also, like, battle. It's like a 3D version and play it inside a Coliseum in the 3D format. But those systems for the consoles never got their own Pokemon game where it's just exclusive to the consoles, meaning that it never had exclusive titles that were meant specifically to use the engine of the system. You know, like as if, like, you know, they would use for Final Fantasy. So, you know, FF7 would come out on PlayStation, Final Fantasy X that came out on PlayStation 2, and so on. And I think that hurt the Pokemon business a little bit. You know, the franchise was hurt a little bit because the consoles is where it's at. You know, you gotta have a strong console presence as well to maintain a strong presence. You know, handhelds are fun and popular and everything, but not everybody has a console. I mean, not everybody has a handheld. Most people have a console. So, you know, not everybody's gonna have a chance to access those games. So even if it's like a handheld exclusive, like Pokemon, you won't be able to experience it if you only own a console, which most people do, you know. You know, being a Nintendo exclusive, that doesn't help either, because with the popularity of the Xbox and Xbox 360 and PlayStation 2 and PS3, you know, Nintendo has to compete with these big names. The fact that the Pokemon games are only available in Nintendo systems, mostly handhelds, you know, once again, that's a detriment, you know. Like, for example, let's look at a successful franchise that everybody knows. Zelda. Okay. there were handheld Zeldas for the Game Boy Color, the original Game Boy, and so on and so forth. But there were also strong titles for the Big Brother console. The Nintendo 64 had Ocarina of Time, the Super Nintendo had A Link to the Past, and of course you got the Wii and GameCube titles. So Legend of Zelda was able to maintain its presence in the industry and maintain its popularity. But Pokemon, on the other hand, never got its big console title. Not only that, you got these other titles to compete against, these other companies to compete against, and Nintendo can only go so far with their handhelds, you know. Like, yeah, okay, the Nintendo DS is getting a lot of sales and everything. Okay, that's cute and everything, and a lot of people are buying it. That's great. But as far as the Pokemon franchise goes, you know, the games themselves don't even improve that much from the previous generations, you know, like little improvements here and there. I remember when they released the second generation, you know, after Blue and Red, which was Gold and Silver. Now you could, they added some new things in there, of course, new Pokemon. The problem with the Pokemon games is that, you know, after the second generation, every other generation seems to just have fallen off, you know, no innovative things they added, just a couple of little tweaks here and there, you know, just a couple of, you know, a little bit more RPG elements. The Pokemons themselves look like crap. I mean, geez, the original 150 Pokemon were really cool, you know, a lot of them, you know, most of them were really unique looking. Even Krabby looked like a cool Pokemon back in the day, you know, it was just a freaking crab. But now you got, you know, the Pokemons that they have now is like unoriginal, uninspired. They all look like counterparts or, you know, just lamer versions of the old Pokemon, you know, like Pidgey or Pidgeotto would have a version in freaking Pokemon Ruby, which was, I don't know, that, you know, crappy looking bird. I forgot. See, I don't even remember the names, you know, they're not even memorable. Wingull or whatever, you know, it's just weird, you know, it's like, okay, you know, no originality, too bad, you know, it's gonna hurt your product, you know. Now, if you're a fanboy slash fangirl, if you're a fan of Pokemon, you know, don't think that I'm just bashing it, you know, just to and then feel bad about it, you know, it's the truth, you know. I grew up playing Pokemon, you know, Red and Blue, but, you know, it's just not innovative anymore. It's the same game over and over again, the same rehashed title. You start up with one Pokemon, and you work your way up, and you fight the same gym leaders again and again, you know, and you earn badges, and it's just, oh, come on, you know. We've done this 10 years ago. They need to bring us something new. You know, the first step would be bringing the Pokemon franchise to the Big Brother console. As in Wii, you know, we need a... If they're gonna do that, it should be... I don't know. I mean, the whole thing is just aimed towards kids, like little kids, you know? Yeah, okay, I was into the show at the beginning, but 10 years later, you know, the shows that are airing now, it hasn't changed, you know, it's the same dumbed down material, it's the same formula again and again, and it's getting tired, you know, it's been tired for years, actually, you know. I think the only people who actually still watch Pokemon to this day are, you know, new fans who haven't experienced the original series. And the thing with Nintendo is that they cater to little kids, you know, like, why don't you just make a more mature version of Pokemon, okay? You know, like, maybe with, I don't know, more mature Pokemon, you know, with more blood, more, I don't know, more fighting, more, realistic, elements thrown in there? I don't know, but you guys need some innovation, quick.